everybody. If we could go ahead and find our seats, we'll get ready to begin. I see that Jody is ready. Thank you, Jennifer. And Amanda's ready. Adonia's ready. Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our annual State of the School meeting. We are so glad that you have taken time out of your very busy lives to come hear about all of the amazing things that our leadership teams here at Free Horizon Montessori have been up to this year, as well as some sneak peeks as to what's coming up next year, and of course our annual Board of Directors elections. So thank you all for coming. If at any point this evening you need to take a break and grab a snack or get a drink of water, please feel free to do so. I know that it's a long evening. We're scheduled to go until 8 o'clock, and we will do our very best to stay on time with that. Tonight, we're going to hear from all of the various leadership teams here at our school, and each of those teams have chosen a representative to speak on their behalf and share with you the work that they've been up to. We're going to start tonight with our guiding principles, which are our mission, vision, and our motto. Our mission is through the Montessori philosophy, we inspire every child to learn and grow as a responsible global citizen in a collaborative, peaceful, and safe environment. Our vision is we seek to transform our community by developing students who pursue their full potential, understand their global responsibilities, and respect others, self, and the environment. And we are Montessori for the 21st century, a place to learn, a place to belong. We have 4 main leadership teams here at our school. The first one is the Board of Directors, and they are responsible for the strategic vision of the school. They have responsibility of hiring, overseeing, and evaluating the principal, and then entrust the daily operations to the principal. And the Board of Directors also has several committees. Some of them are permanent and some are convened on an as-needed basis. The current committees that the board has in place are the School Accountability Committee, which is mandated by the state, the Governance Committee, the Finance Committee, the Facilities Committee, and the Communications and Branding Committee. And we're going to hear from all of those folks tonight. We also have the administrative leadership team, and these are the folks that are hired employees of the school who are responsible for the day-to-day operations. As the principal, I am responsible for all of the hiring, evaluating, and supervising of the rest of the staff, although I do delegate some of those responsibilities to other members of the executive leadership team. And we are responsible for the operationalization of our school's mission, vision, and values. We also have the Accountability Committee, which has both staff members and parent volunteers. We're required by state statute to have more parents on the Accountability Committee than staff members. They are responsible for analyzing the data of our school. So they create, distribute, and analyze the surveys, both those that are distributed by JEFCO as well as those developed here within our own community. They look at academic data on an aggregate basis. They don't know which children the data is from, but they look at the data and they make recommendations to the administrative team in order to foster improvement, not just with our curriculum and instruction, but also our school culture. And then we have the Community Support Network, which is the Free Horizon Montessori Foundation. And there's a bit of a line of separation there because they are a separate 501c3 private foundation in order to support our school. And they have their own operational board of directors that implements their strategic initiatives as well. All of our fundraising goes through the CSN. They are also responsible for helping with our volunteerism and building a strong community. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris Weber, our Board of Directors President.
Good evening. As Krista mentioned, I'm Chris Weber. I'm your current board president. So as Krista was mentioning, we are chartered with making sure that the school is viable. It's really what the board is about, setting strategic objectives. The hiring and evaluating of the principal, which we're going through right now, ensuring that our academic programs are successful, that we're faithful to the terms of our charter, and that making sure that we are viable. So our current board members, I'm going to introduce them. Most of them are here tonight. Myself serving as president. We have Neil Belstock, vice president, and also he served on the Communications and Branding Committee. Thank you for that. His term is actually ending tonight, as well as mine. So there will be some new people that will be stepping in here. Our treasurer is Hillary Hobson. Is she? Okay, I didn't see her. She's also serving on the finance committee, and she'll be giving a presentation tonight as well. Jen Stickle serves as our secretary as well as liaison to the facilities committee. And then Jill Fricker is the backup to the treasurer and also is the chair of our finance committee. And then Roger Poole unfortunately couldn't be here tonight. He had a family emergency that he had to go and take care of, but he's been serving on the board as backup to the secretary. And then Alex Ramsey, thank you Alex, is a director at large and the liaison to the SAC as well. And then also Krista serves on the board. She's a non-voting ex officio member of the board. So now I'd like to take a minute to recognize Neil, if you wouldn't mind. You want to come up here for a second? So Neil has served on the board. He came on as an interim member, which means when we have an opening on the board, one of the board members has to step off for whatever reason. It's a person that's willing to step in and take over the remainder of that term. And then he was also elected to serve as well, and he's been serving 2 years now with the board. He is retiring now, and he has served in many different roles. Vice president is his current role now. He also served as liaison to the SAC. He was on the finance committee as the backup to the treasurer, and he's also done an incredible job with the branding and chairing the communications committees as well. So we're very grateful, Neil, for the effort that you put into the board over the years. So thank you. So we like to give a plant because it's representative of the nurturing and the growth that the board members have contributed over the years. And then also there's a signed fox that all the kids signed here for him as well. So I'm going to miss having Neil on the board. I think the one thing that he's brought to us is sometimes an interesting perspective. He's not afraid to hold back at times and speak his mind. He's not going away, though. He's actually going to be moving over and joining the CSN. Yeah. And do you know what role? So, yep. Okay. Yeah, so he's going to be on the CSN serving there now as well. So, yeah. Thank you, Neil. Yeah.
These are some fun photos of Neil actually contributing above and beyond his board service. So enjoy. Thank you, Neil. So Chris Weber is also retiring this evening. So he joined our board in May of 2013 officially, but he was attending board meetings for quite a while prior to that. He is retiring from the board of directors this evening, and he has served as president for the past 3 years, which is pretty amazing. It's an incredible amount of commitment and time above and beyond. It's like a full-time unpaid job. So we thank you for all of that time and contribution. He has also served as the liaison to the governance committee, service on our technology committee, which is again above and beyond, as well as on the finance committee, and he has been on the principal review committee for the past 3 years as well. And so this evening we are pretty excited to share that we are establishing a Chris Weber Enrichment and Program Scholarship Fund in your honor. So this says, for that selfless service, tireless support, creative visionary leadership, and unparalleled generosity of spirit provided throughout his roles on the Free Horizon Montessori's Board of Directors from 2013 to 2017, and in every regard as inspirational FHM volunteer extraordinaire. So thank you. We also have a canvas that has been signed by our children, including your own. They have some very sweet words. Yeah. And of course a plant, because you have nurtured all of us, and I've learned so much from you. So thank you so much for all of your work.
Thank you. I'm speechless. That's amazing. It has been so rewarding to work here, not only with the administration, but involved with the children. And I too am not going away. I'm going to continue to serve. I'm hoping to participate with the governance committee and work on some policy. Yeah, Ms. Lynn. Yep. So I'm looking forward to, continued years here and participating in any way that I can, helping out. So thank you. I really appreciate that. So now some background about our board. It's an 8-member board. I did introduce them. We have 7 voting members and then the principal as an ex officio member. Our 2017-2018 board, so Jill Fricker, Hillary Hobson, Roger Poole, Alex Ramsey, and Jen Stickle will be staying on. We appreciate their service. And we do have 2 vacancies, so hopefully all of you have voted. If not, we'll have some opportunity here pretty soon. Officer elections for executive positions and then committee assignments for liaisons will happen at the next meeting. And our meetings are held the second Thursday of each month. So our next meeting will be May 11th. And anybody is welcome to attend those meetings. So the board really, we focus on strategy for the school. As that slide that Cresta was talking about the 4 different organizations within the school. Ours falls within strategic, which means we're looking sometimes 3, 4 year, 5 years out. Operations, where Cresta's in charge, is focusing on the here and now, making sure the school is running day to day. But our objective is to look and to plan ahead and try and find ways to continue to make the school successful. So we meet annually in June. We had 2, this last year we had 2 pretty intensive days going through topics, future topics that the board wanted to tackle. Last couple years we've done what's called a SWOT analysis, where we look for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This year we opted not to do that, but we did do a review where we went back and looked at the past 2 years and reevaluated those areas that we identified as strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats, and figured out how we could improve upon those going forward. We also reviewed our previous year's goals, and in doing that, we came up with what the 2016-2017 goals would be. So we decided to continue with 3 of those because we hadn't completely finished them. The first was the branding and identity, where we're trying to engage our community. The second was capital improvements, where we're trying to create a better facility here, adequacy for the education that's happening. And then the third was internal communications. Again, engaging our community and our staff. And then also we wanted to maintain a previous goal. We felt like we had made significant progress on it, but it was important enough that we wanted to continue working with it, and that was the professional development, where we're engaging our staff. So we did want to continue to make that a focus. And then we added a new strategic goal, and that was to really take a close look at the middle school and figure out how, with what was coming with Jeffco, how we could, if we wanted to align with their plans for moving 6th grade into middle school, or if we were going to take a different tack. Again, engaging our community. So the accomplishments, so intentional work towards fulfilling each of those goals. We did decide to merge 2, the internal communications and the branding. We felt like they fit so closely with one another. We worked on what the brand was. Now it was time to communicate it. So we wanted to bring those 2 together. And that was good because it really brought it down to 3 goals. And if there's more than 3, a board has a tough time tackling much more than that. So it was good to have 3 focuses that we were on. The capital planning and then the middle school realignment. And then we continue to support the professional development. We continue to place a strong emphasis on the staff compensation and ways that we can work with the budget to retain the best teachers that we have here. We continue to work on our on our accreditation. We are an associate member of American Montessori Society, but we're working on a full accreditation there. And then for the 4th consecutive year, we'll get into finance here in a little bit, but for the 4th consecutive year, we're projecting a budget surplus, so that's good news as well. So I'm quickly going to go through each of these. So the Internal Communications and School Branding Committee, Neil, Jill, and Roger all served on that. The objective there primarily was a growth of our identity. Figure out, we'd spent the last year figuring out what that identity is and really focusing on what that message would be. Now it was how do we bring that brand that we'd identified into the classroom, working on ways to work with our curriculum, how our brand could be enhanced by our curriculum. So, and then one of those things was to generate icons so we could communicate that with the public, and then finally to get buy-in from the public. How are we going to convey that to those outside of our school? And then the communications piece, it was here, this is kind of an area where we could get into operations, but the board is not focused on that. We're focused on the strategy. So really, we're leaving it up to Krista and her staff to implement this. It was more about, hey, let's look at how we can simplify the templates that we use for communication, and then provide consistency for all of that communication. And I think they've done an exceptional job this year on that. So some of the accomplishments that we've had, crystallizing that alignment between the brand and then the works that the students are doing in the classroom, and then the visualization. There's been some pretty amazing effort done. We've engaged a third-party organization to help us with some of that branding and what do those icons look like, and then working with the school leadership for consistent communication. And I'm happy to say that we are on track to market that brand. So next year, that's going to be a really strong push, hopefully, of the board to push those communications. So the capital planning, so Jen and myself served on that. And really two objectives there: evaluate the facility. Is it adequate? If not, how do we respond and look long-term to make sure that we're providing an adequate environment for our students? So the accomplishments, Jen continues to serve tirelessly on the facilities committee, acting as a liaison there. And then the one really strong effort that we put in this year was evaluating the financing of the school, the actual funding of the school, the bond, and do we want to look at refinancing it? So we looked at all the different options, and this was back when 3A and 3B were on the table, and it looked like they might be a way that we could save some money over the years and possibly do some capital improvements. But unfortunately, the voters in Jefferson County had a different idea, and so that didn't pass. But what it did do is it helped us to crystallize our idea that we had to be ready at a moment's notice, that no matter what the market does, we're going to be ready to respond to that. So we gleaned a ton of very useful knowledge from that exercise over the last year. We'll have plenty more updates here in a little bit when the facility gives theirs. The last one, the middle school reconfiguration, as Jeffco goes to a 6th through 8th model, and K through 5th, as they make that separation here over the next year. We wanted to look at that and say, does that fit with us and our Montessori principles, and is that a way that can we implement it in the same manner? And in terms of accomplishments, we set up a team that went out and looked at several other successful Montessori schools and evaluated their middle school program, and have been talking to the leaders at those schools to try and find how we could apply some of their knowledge. We've continued to offer professional development for those in the middle school. 2 minutes? Okay, thank you. And then, I didn't realize there was a clock, but thank you. Bree is the clock. All right. And then the last thing is, how do we map that transition so that we're taking care of the students' curricular, social, and emotional needs? And I'm excited that that's all going to be implemented in the fall of 2018. So with that, we're going to turn it over to the governance committee. So Ms. Lynn?
Hi everyone, I'm glad you're here. We will get started. I am the chair of the governance committee, and we have two awesome members. Already know Chris, and we have Margaret King, who is just really good with documents and things like that. So thrilled to have her. Just a little bit about the governance committee, and I promise it won't be long. The governance committee helps the board of directors implement vision and strategy by drafting policy and procedures. We follow policy to recruit and screen potential board of director candidates, which is a big reason why we're here tonight. And we manage the board of directors election process. I also want to add that Luke Mund is our tech guy with that, because last year we went tech with voting and live streaming, and without him, it would have been tricky. So, thank you. But it's a big process, and we start in December planning so that our timeline honors the protocols. This year, we have 3 candidates, and you'll hear more about that later. As a charter school, FHM is governed by their own community-elected board of directors, which you heard a lot about from Chris, and we function independently of Jeffco Public Schools. There's more in the membership. I think most of that is identical to what Chris said. But on the voting, so last year we opened up our voting process so that we can have a more inclusive process. And we now have where there's one vote per guardian. So we went from one vote per family to each legal guardian of a family being able to vote. In addition, our staff members also vote for board of directors. We still have paper ballots, but we are thrilled to have the electronic system. It has worked awesomely. I think by next year, we'll really have it running smoothly. I know there were a couple of glitches. I was the chair this year, so I'll take responsibility, but we're learning as we go, and it offers families options. So there's a code of conduct for the board of directors, and they're outlined there. And we are going to get onto our voting process actually here. Just to note that the board of directors will vote on their officers in May. And as Chris already mentioned, they meet the second Thursday of every month, but that is subject to change, subject to who's on the board. So this is the exciting part. We have 3 candidates, and I will ask the 2 who are here today to stand when I call their names. They're in alphabetical order. That's the only, I just want you to know that. So we have Lisa Cernick. Lisa? And Katrina Smoka. Katrina? And we also have Jonathan Spitzy, who could not be here this evening. Each of them did post a video, and we tried to make sure that people had a chance to get to know them as best as possible. I just want to say thank you to the 3 of them who have said yes to being a part of this very important team. With that, I'm sorry, we are going to open up. I should backtrack, shouldn't I, for just a moment. So, this is the point where whoever didn't get a chance to vote can submit a paper ballot. You can raise your hand if you need a paper ballot still to vote. Awesome! Thank you, everyone. At this point, the governance committee is going to go tally because by school policy, we have to announce the winners this evening. So we're going to go do the counts. Thank you all for being involved. It is huge. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Hillary Hobson. I am the treasurer of the board of directors. I've been the treasurer for the past 2 years, and I've been on the finance committee for a total of 4-ish years. I can't remember exactly. The backup to the treasurer is Jill Fricker. She's also on the board. We also have a member at large, which is usually a community member, and that's how I started with the finance committee. We are looking for one, so if anyone's interested in finding out more about the finances of the school and just kind of hearing all the things we go through, we more than encourage someone to step forward and take that role. We only meet the last Thursday of every month. It's from 7:30 till 9 in the morning, so it's not super intrusive, and it's just, you can even bring your kid and bring them a little bit early and hang out with us. Krista is also in that committee, and is Beth Helmke, the business director, and whoever that is going to be for next year. So we also have some working sessions mostly in the summertime, around budget time in like February, March. We have a couple budgeting sessions that are a couple hours long. We review all the actuals, variances, forecasts, everything that's going on with the school, anything that's happening that we might need to allocate funds to differently. We monitor the strategic goals that kind of relate to the Finance Committee, which is the majority of them. And we also make sure we have financial transparency and compliance oversight. So, the fiscal year. So FY17 means the school year ending in 2017, which is this year. FY18 is the 2017-2018 school. So we're moving into the FY17 budgeting cycle. PPR is per pupil revenue, and that is the dollar amount they attach to each child, and that's what they give the school for our funding. FTE is a full-time equivalent, and that's how we are funded with the PPR. So a kindergartner, unfortunately, only counts for 0.58 of a person, which, you know, but everybody else counts as one. So basically, we start the budgeting process in the fall of this school year, or August, September. This budget development is started for the next fiscal year, so we're always working kind of a year in advance. In the spring, we provide the budget to the board. They read it, take any questions or concerns, and we come back to the board again for a second read so that they can approve it. Then in October, we have the FTE count. Then we can kind of finalize the budget. Then we know where we're at, how many people are pupils we have, and what our funding is actually going to be. In November, if we have to revise the budget, so if we have more than a 5% variance, higher or lower, then we have to present a budget to the board, to JEFCO, and then we start all over again. So we're very fiscally sound. We had higher than budgeted in enrollment this year. We thought it was going to come around 308, but it was 312. The project's ending in FY17 had a modest budget surplus, and it's maintained to meet the reserves because we have to maintain a certain amount of reserves due to the bond to make sure that we have enough funding at the end of the bond to pay it off. Unrestricted reserves at the end of FY17 are going to be about $760,000, which is more than 2 times our monthly expenditures, and that's where we want it to be. The full MLO fund equalization was approved in 2015, so this is our second year of receiving that, and that's been very beneficial, and it allowed us to realize teacher salary increases, among other things, having that extra funding. We made a pretty strong investment in the curriculum and materials and technology, and we're going to continue that through next year as well. And the FY18 budget is balanced. It's been reviewed by the board. It has been approved. And we are very conservative, thanks to Beth. She makes sure that we are always running where we're supposed to be running. And the enrollment in the clubs and enrichment participation is growing, and so is that program. Now, you probably noticed there's a lot more offerings, and that is definitely growing. So here's the budget. So our revenues are majority from the PPR funding. The MLO is significant. It's $414,000. And that's something that we just realized in the past 2 years. Then we have tuition fees and programs at the $856,000. Donations are about $120,000, and then just other grants and other miscellaneous things for $155,000. Then the expenses, the salary and benefits is 72% of the budget, which is $2.6 million. The bond payments are the payments we make for the school building, which is $477,000. Purchase services are things that we're required to purchase from the district. I can't think of any off the hand, but there's some things like, help me. Yeah, all that stuff. So our fund balances continue to grow. We had some stagnation in FY11 through 13 where it was being spent to supplement the budget, but we don't have to do that anymore, and our reserves are very healthy now. Our count is going up at a really good rate. We're not growing too fast to where we can't absorb everything, but we are continually growing and adding FTE numbers. Our most single source of important funding is that PPR amount, but it has been complicated through the negative factor. Everyone probably knows about the negative factor. No one wants to talk about the negative factor. But basically, they said schools have to get a cost of living rider every year. But if the governor needs money to balance his budget, he can take it back. That's basically what it means. So it's going to equate to $1,395 per child in FY18 of a reduction that we should be receiving, but we're not. And here's kind of the national average and where Colorado is in the national average and how it has declined significantly since the negative factor. And then here's another good graph on the negative factor. And the red is showing the money we could be receiving or should be receiving, but we're not. So it's about $2.5 million we haven't received in the past 6 or 7 years. And that's it.
I haven't given a speech since college in 2001, so you all sound so professional, and I might sound a little bit different. But my name is Jody Salvati. This is my second year at FHM. I have students, and I'm serving in the SAC committee. We are going to give our update. So, the SAC committee consists of, I'm already learning, David Wells. He's a parent and the SAC chair. We have Becky Riviera, who is our SAC secretary. We have Alex Ramsey, who is our community member. She is like a wealth of information. I have learned just a tremendous amount from her. It's unbelievable. She's the board liaison. Anna, I'm going to butcher your last name, so I'm not even going to try. I tried to secretly ask around, and nobody had it. So she's our new CSN liaison. We have Bree Groans, who is the FHM assistant principal, Heather Smith, who is the FHM art teacher, and Joelle Hogue, which is a community member. I don't think she's here tonight. Myself, and Jessie Ornelius, who is the FHM assessment coordinator. Oh, yeah. Hello, everybody on YouTube. So the SAC provides a framework for the community advisement to the administration and the board of directors. We gather data from the students, the parents, and the staff to inform the community and distribute results to leadership teams and the community at large. We try and foster an atmosphere of continual improvement at the school. We have 4 surveys. 3 areas, one of them contains 2 surveys. So we have the parent surveys, we have the FHM addendum survey that's done in the fall, and this year we had 116 respondents. We also have the family school partnership survey, which is done by Jefferson County District. It was done in the fall, and we had 108 respondents. We have a staff survey that is an all-school staff survey now, so every single employee is offered this survey. And that's done in February and March, and we had 78% participation. We also have a student survey, which I found fascinating. It's for grades 2 through 8, and it's called the Jeffco Make Your Voice Heard survey. It was done over the winter, and it had 177 respondents. So starting with the parent survey, the FHM addendum survey had 116 respondents, which nearly doubled the number of respondents we had from 15-16. So that's really exciting. That's in the data. I'm learning about these data cruncher people. That's really awesome. It's really that's big numbers. So these are the top priorities that we were receiving from the FHM addendum. So 27.3% of the people said that we support student success. 22.2% said effective communication. Then we also had fidelity of Montessori, setting strategic vision, approachable faculty, welcoming to all families, meeting volunteer needs, and the hot lunch program, which was a hot topic. And you can see, I told you the numbers for the first two, but everybody can look and see the smaller numbers. Here we have the top 5 useful school provided services from the addendum survey again. Our number 1 was the ability to communicate with the child's teacher at 86%. The ability to pre-order hot lunch, again, at 86%. It's a big topic. Bi-monthly classroom newsletter, also at 86%. The child care provided for volunteer committees at 85%. And the Grub Club coming in at 80%. So now we'll turn to the parent surveys. The results from another parent survey is the Family School Partnership done by Jefferson County School District with 108 respondents. These are the 5 strongly agree, disagree. The support for student success was 98%. My child's school is a safe place for my child to learn was 98%. FHM staff provides meaningful roles for families, 95%. And the school provides leadership opportunities for families at 93%. The FHM staff values my input about my child's education. That's huge. 87% people. That's awesome. So, the staff survey. Oh, look at your smiling faces. So, the school survey apparently only used to involve those in charge of instruction. Thank you, Bree. And now, everybody got to take it. So, the facilities manager got to take it, right? So, that's exciting. We are so proud to share this number with you. 95% of FHM staff agrees or strongly agrees that they like working at FHM. Yay! Right? So, the student survey that serves grades 2 through 8 with 178 respondents. So, the Make Your Voice Heard survey asked grades 2 through 6 and 7 to 8 to rate items in the areas of relationships, school climate, academic rigor, and relevance. This year's students answered questions on 2 out of 5 JEFCO competencies: civic and global engagement, and self-direction and personal responsibility. This is the first time these 2 were included in the survey. Our school chose these 2 JEFCO competencies because they are in alignment with the vision and mission here at FHM. And you'll see here the results are on a scale of 1 to 4, 1 being strongly disagree, and 4 being strongly agree. We have stayed steady over a 3-year period, 14-15, 15-16, 16-17, with the points being 3 points or over out of 4 for all 3 years. Very exciting. So, from the competency questions, you have the majority of students across all grade levels agreed with these statements. I think people should help those who need it, even if I don't know them. The harder I work at something, the better I will be at it. In contrast, fewer students agreed with these statements. I use goals to stay on track, and I join activities to help improve my school. So, in final thoughts, good decisions come from good data. Community input is valued and super important. We thank everybody who participated in all of our surveys. We always invite new members. I, myself, have found this committee to be an absolute wealth of information, and it was very well time spent. And I plan to continue. The minutes and such are posted on the FHM website, and you're welcome to peruse them. Thank you. I did it.
All right.
So, I'm going to talk about the Unified Improvement Plan, which is actually developed in the School Accountability Committee with input from our staff as well as the committee, the SAC committee. So the timing of the development of the UIP is a little bit precarious because in March and April of 2016, we participated in the state-mandated testing. In September, we received the information from those tests. So that's a little bit of a time gap between when the kids took the test and when we received the information. In October and November, we were analyzing that data and looking at how it applied to the UIP goals that we had established the previous year and how to carry those forward into the next year. We submitted the updated UIP to JEFCO in December, who then in turn submits it to the Colorado Department of Education. January and onward, we are implementing the action steps that we identify in the UIP. And then in April, we participated in state testing again. The state testing schedules have fluctuated over the last 3 years as far as the timing, but this year it was all in April. They're telling us that we will receive the data in August. We'll see. I'll believe it when it happens, which is really interesting because next year our UIP update is due in September. So for those of you who know that we return to school on August 14th, and it's due to the district in September, does not give us a whole lot of time to update that UIP, but I'm sure we'll figure it out. So in addition to the state testing data, which the state requires that we do use survey data, both the staff, the parent, and the student surveys, as well as the interim assessment data, which is MAP and DIBBLES. And we actually find that that data is more useful for us in determining growth and meeting our goals because of the gap between when our students take the state assessments and when we receive that data. So for this year, our Unified Improvement Plan, these are the priority improvement challenges and the number of steps that we identified and how many we've fulfilled to date. So the first one is addressing several aspects of school culture by focusing on family engagement, student retention, and retention of highly effective teachers at Free Horizon so that everybody feels valued and important at our school. 2 of the 4 action steps are completed, and there are 2 more in process. One of them was developing a parent education series, and we have done that with Tapas and Workshopas. We've had limited participation so far, so we encourage you all to come out to those because our staff works incredibly hard. Another one was enhancing our writing instruction throughout the school by completing a comprehensive evaluation of our curriculum, continuum of writing rubrics, instructional practices, homework expectations, assessments, and outcomes. So all of these steps are ongoing in nature. We did address each and every one of them multiple times throughout the school year, including at our meeting yesterday after school. So they are all ongoing in nature. Our third improvement strategy or improvement challenge was enhancing math instruction throughout our school by continuing a comprehensive evaluation and enhancement of consistent implementation of our math curriculum, pacing guides, grouping conventions, instructional practices, homework expectations, assessments, and outcomes, and that's a lot of work. The work continues in this area as well. We have touched on every single one of those improvement action items, and they are continuing in nature. And the state requires that we identify READ plan related goals as well, and I'm happy to report that all of those steps are complete, and here they are in detail. We were to evaluate and enhance our reading resources for teachers to include phonetic and decodable readers, so we did that. We provided additional specialized training in reading best practices and instructional and specific curriculum-based instructional strategies. We've completed that, but that is an ongoing thing. It's not a one and done. We need to continue to do that. We have increased our fidelity and progress monitoring to include the students scoring below benchmark, or those are the yellows and DIBBLES, and bolstering the interventions provided. We completed that, and which also included hiring a literacy-specific interventionist this year, Miss Rachel, so that we're pretty excited about that. And then evaluate our core reading programs for K-2 per the READ Act requirements and make recommendations of a program to be implemented in the 16-17 school year, which we also did with the Read Well program. On to that state testing data. Now, even though we're a Montessori school and we believe in looking at the whole child, there is value in taking a peek at that state data and making sure that we are helping prepare our students to meet those state standards. What you're looking at is the English language arts for grades 3 through 6. Our cohorts in grades 7 and 8 are not large enough to publish publicly. We absolutely do look at those internally with our staff, but we cannot share those publicly because the in-groups are not large enough. So what you want to see is the purple and the turquoise blue at the top. The bigger that is, that means the more students met or exceeded the state standards in that area of English language arts. One cool thing is that you see a consistent decrease in the number of students who did not yet meet the standards as they get older and go through our program. This is the 2-year trend. This is all we have for the CMAS English language arts is a 2-year trend because we used to do I don't remember what it was, CSAP before that. So we only have a 2-year trend, and the red is the 15-16. So we either held relatively steady or had some progress in the 3rd and 6th grade for English language arts. And this is growth. So this is showing if you look at the same child 1 year and look at them a next year, how much they're growing over time. And this is comparing Jeffco and the state and our school. Jeffco's is right around the midline. The state average is always 50%, always. And then you can see that our school has a much higher growth percentile rate than both Jeffco and the state. So that means that we're taking children where they're at and we're moving them forward. We're being able to show growth over time. Let's talk about math. So again, the more purple you have, the better, and the fewer of the dark blue along the bottom of the did not yet meet, the better. Not as good at math as English language arts. And this is the 2-year trend for math in 3rd through 6th grade. And again, our 7th and 8th grade cohorts were not large enough to publish publicly. And there's the growth percentiles in math. Again, the state average is always going to be 50. Jeffco did a little bit over 50 in math, but we were significantly higher in every grade but 4th. That's what we said. Science. We do have a 3-year trend in science because we've been doing the CMAS test for 3 years for science, and only 5th, 8th, and 10th graders take that test. So this is the 5th grade comparison year over year, and you want to see the exceeded and met, so dark green and light green. And the nice thing is there's actually a 5th category that said did not meet, and we had no students any of the 3 years that did not meet the standard. Yeah. And this is 8th grade. So the cool thing, if you look at that partially met, and again, 8th graders also had no students who did not meet all 3 years, but the partially met is going down significantly. So that means we're making great progress in helping more of the students get closer to meeting all of the standards as expected. So all of that state data goes into the school performance framework. Every public school in the state has one of these. It's put out by the Colorado Department of Education, and it determines whether or not a school is accredited and whether they are accredited with distinction, accredited, whether they're on an improvement plan, a priority improvement plan, or a turnaround plan. So Jeffco as a district is accredited. They receive 64.2 out of 100 points possible. And we as a school are also accredited with 77.5 points possible out of 100, and I'm pretty excited. Yes. Yes. Catherine has a question. Yeah, it's at over 87.5. So we're overall accredited on a performance plan. We meet academic achievement standards. We exceed academic longitudinal growth standards. We don't report on post-secondary and workforce readiness because we don't have high school. And we meet the 95% test participation rate. This is hard to see, but every one of those little green boxes, it can either be green, blue, yellow, orange, or red. It's really great when they're all green and blue, because that means that the greens are the meets and the blues are the exceeds in all of those standards. And you can't see it, but I'm going to point it out. This is the middle school academic growth, and that is a 100% of the points possible we earned. 100%. Way to go, middle school. So we do have some admin staffing changes coming up next year that we're announcing to our community. So Beth has decided that 100 miles each direction from Buena Vista is too far to drive. So she is moving over the summer, which is wonderful for her family and a loss for us. We did a national search. We had 8 candidates for 6 local and 2 from out of state, and brought back 2 finalists. And it's always wonderful when your internal candidate is the one who's the best. And so Mira Nagy will be stepping into that role. So we're pretty excited about that. When you have a change in leadership, you also have an opportunity to reevaluate distribution of responsibilities. So we have done that. We have taken some of the responsibilities from the current finance, facilities, and advancement position, and we're moving facilities onto the director of operations where it truly belongs. And so Megan is expanding in some of her responsibilities in our school. And along with that, Margaret is retiring at the end of this year. She's counting votes right now. But Margaret is retiring, and so because of the additional capacity created on the financial end with taking facilities off of that position, we're able to put some of the things that Margaret has been doing onto that position, like field trip management and materials inventory, that sort of thing. And so we'll be hiring a half-time financial secretary really to manage the accounts payable and accounts receivable and tuition and that sort of a thing. We did look at the overall structure as well, and the IT coordinator position has been eliminated in order to put some of the high-level work on the director of operations, as well as some of it will be contracted out, which is what 14 of the other 17 charters in Jeffco do. And then along with that, we've expanded the technology specials teacher role and hours. However, Luke is going to be moving on to a different position next year as well. And then Jennifer Levy, you all have met her because she does enrollment and programs. She just accepted the primary to lead position as our permanent teacher. So Amanda said, gosh, that kind of means that you're in perpetual interview mode. Whenever you fill internally, yes, when we fill internally, then it just means we have more puzzle pieces to fill, but it's always a good thing when we can promote from within, so that's a pretty exciting thing. So we have a lot to celebrate this year. One of the things that I am super proud of is that members of our community are making a difference in the big wide world out there that we are tapped into intentionally. So some examples of that. So Dave serves on the District Accountability Committee as well. So thank you, Dave. So Chris, you were personally invited to help chair the 3A, 3B initiative in Jefferson County, which was amazing. So thank you, Chris. Bree serves as a Montessori field consultant, so that means that she evaluates and mentors Montessori teachers that are learning to be Montessori teachers. She can't do that in our school, but she does that for others in the field. So congratulations, Bree. And the night before the first Principal Advisory Council meeting this year, I got an email with the agenda. And Tim Matlick had just voluntold me that I was the charter representative this year. So I have been serving in that capacity as well. So I'm the charter representative to the Principal Advisory Council. Again, our middle school, I'm going to say it again, they received 100 points available in the academic growth percentile on the Colorado Department of Education School Performance Framework. That's amazing. We, through careful budgeting and incredibly generous donors, have the ability to take incremental steps toward implementing our long-range facility strategic vision in order to better support student learning through educational adequacy. And we have some updates for you tonight through the Facilities Committee. And this one's really cool. Mr. Tony was voted best of the best in the teacher category by the Golden Transcript voters. So we just found out Mr. Tony, Teacher of the Year. So we're not surprised. We're very proud of you, Tony. Congratulations. All right, we are ready for our amazing CSN update.
Yes. Are you jet lagged?
Super.
Okay.
All right. My name is Anna Setry. Yep, Setry. I have two kiddos. This is our third year for Remy. He's a first grader this year, and first year for Sophie, who is preschool. I just stepped into this role of being the president of the CSN about 2 months ago, 3 weeks of which I was out of the country, so forgive me for being a neophyte. The things that the CSN does, mainly we are in charge of trying to raise money, boots on the ground, right here and now, and coordinating volunteer efforts. So the things that we support are individualized instruction, engaging curriculum, and a strong community. We are also, as Chris and Cresta said, we are separate from the school. We are a nonprofit, a 501c3, I never get that right, and so we are actually completely financially separate, and the money that we raise is tax-free, tax-deductible, and then we donate it back to the school. So we do operate separately. So currently, these are the people that are serving. Like I said, I just stepped into the president role. Adonia Hendrick, it's your second year at FHM? Okay. She has just stepped into the vice president role, bravely. So she and I are going to be learning together and exploring together. Kara is our secretary. Is Kara here tonight? No, she's probably recovering because she's also the sprinkling coordinator, and she did a fabulous job this year. We'll get to that later. Kate is our treasurer. This is second or third year for Kate, and she is stepping down this year, so we will have that position open. We have Jess, who's our fundraising chair, and he will be returning, and I think Neil is coming on as the fundraising co-chair. We had Hattie. God told me. We had Hattie and Autumn who are not coming back, but Hattie was our community liaison, so she was in charge of helping bridge between us and the staff, and in charge of coordinating treats for teachers and the other staff appreciation that we do. Autumn was our marketing chair. She's also not coming back, so we'll need somebody to help us with marketing and branding and all that good stuff. We have Jennifer, who was our communications chair. She was also president of the CSN for a while. She is stepping down, so we have that open. Katie, our volunteer coordinator. This is her second or third year. And then we have Megan, who's our staff liaison. So we are going to do a meet and a vote for the CSN board. Probably not going to do that tonight, but we are going to put it out there so that people are aware and so that people can participate. One of the main things that we really would like to do this year is to get more people involved and to reach out to the community and to become even more of a community service and to involve as many people as we possibly can. So Adonia and I would like to come back next year. Kara would like to come back next year. Kate, our treasurer, is going to come back next year, but she is going to need a co-treasurer so that she can train someone to be the treasurer, because she will not come back the following year. And we've got Jess, and Neil was volunteered. So certainly if you do not want that role, there are plenty of other positions you could choose from. Or you could do 2 or 3. As I stated before, here are the volunteer opportunities. We need a new community liaison, a new marketing chair, a new communications chair, a new volunteer coordinator. All of these things are going to be really important because this is how we communicate with the staff and how we communicate with the parents, and we're kind of the in-between between the staff and the parents. So the more people that we can get involved and get participating, then the stronger our school will be. The main thing that we do each year is the spring fling, and that's how we raise a majority of our money. This year, we just wrote a check to FHM for $120,000, which is huge. This year, our spring fling totals, the live auction got us $24,500. The special appeal, which is for the playground, got us $16,700. The silent auction, $6,500. Admission, so tickets, got $4,575. The raffle raised $6,655. Sponsorships from various businesses and individuals, $925, and the photo booth, $155. So the grand total we raised at Spring Fling this year was $60,000, and that is a new record for us. So we're pretty proud of that, and a lot of that goes to Kara for being amazing. And I'm sorry she's not here tonight, but I will certainly pass along to her. This is just showing us the totals that we were able to raise in past years. So we can see that there was a downward trend last year. I'm not sure why. I don't think anybody really knows why, but we are back on an upward trend. This year the total was $104,000, and then we had a surplus from the year before that we were also able to donate back to the school. These are things that were used for technology, were used for professional development, and used for the planning part of the playground. So in the coming year, hopefully then what we will donate will continue with the professional development and technology, and then we'll go towards the actual building of the playground. This we didn't want to talk about tonight, but we didn't have a chance to delete this slide, so we will talk about that later. And then these are just the ways in which people can participate in addition to the spring fling. So people can buy the King Soopers reloadable gift cards, Safeway Natural Grocers. Then we also have United Way, Cars for Charity, the Grub Club, Amazon Smile, and Box Tops for education, labels for education, and milk caps for Moolah. So all of these are different ways that we are able to raise money towards that $100,000-something that we donate each year to the school. And we just wanted to acknowledge and thank all of the amazing staff that we have at Free Horizon Montessori. And then a thank you to our sponsors. So these are families and businesses that have supported Free Horizon. And that is it. Now, election results for Board of Directors.
We'll come back. Okay, we have the Facilities Committee to wrap up. I know you are sitting on the edge of your seats waiting for the election results. Indulge me for this time while we go through the Facilities Committee update. So as Chris said, the Facilities Committee is a standing committee of the Board of Directors. We currently have Jen Stickle, who is the board liaison and has been for the past few years. The CSN representative is currently vacant, so Neil. The building code rep had actually previously been Nira, but based upon her new appointment as staff, we will be trading that role out. We have our current annual building corps meeting late May, so we'll communicate more out about that opportunity as we get closer to that annual meeting.
Krista, myself, and Sean, as our facilities managers, serve on the FHM administration side of things, and then the parent community representatives are Jonathan Spitzy, who is also a board of directors candidate this evening, and Jeannie Mabey, who is here tonight as well. We meet monthly. Dates and times vary. It's pretty good stuff. We talk a lot about the facilities master plan, the strategic vision, and decision-making as it pertains to advancing the school's work towards realization of that optimal learning environment for our students. We collaborate with everyone who will listen to us and answer our questions. So thank you for all who have done so through the surveys that have gone out, a lot of the inputs and opinions on the playground and learning landscape development. Thank you very much. This is definitely a community endeavor, and your voice is very, very important in the decisions that are made as we move the school towards full realization of the facilities master plan. A few celebrations this year. As Chris alluded to, well, I'm back up a little bit. I actually think of the facilities master plan at Free Horizon kind of like climbing a mountain. And the facilities master plan is ultimately how we identify what the summit of that mountain looks like. So how do we get to the top of the mountain? We've all sort of identified that that's where we want to be. And the facilities master plan is ultimately what guides us along that path, along that trail to get to that point. Sometimes you hit false summits. We did a lot of work that Chris alluded to this past fall to undertake a refinance pursuit to set us up to be able to revise the current debt service for the school with 3B on the table then in order to realize some liquid capital that we could then go and realize the full expansion of the current facility. So build out our gym and our cafeteria and our auditorium and the additional learning spaces. As you know, the economy changed, the bond market changed, the 3B failed, so said, well, that wasn't the summit that we were intended to realize. Now we're going to keep marching, keep hiking along. That said, that work, that deep dive, that strategization on different financial scenarios really did put us in a good position to determine how we were going to ultimately achieve that final summit. So it was time well spent. We were disappointed at the time, but it really re-energized and activated and catalyzed a lot of the work that we've got coming before us. So it was a net positive, even though at the time I was pretty pouty about it. We did go through to SECFA, which is the Colorado Educational Cultural Facilities Authority. Basically, they are the ones who underwrite our tax-exempt bond status. They are very much a partner and an endorser of the work that Free Horizon is doing for capital expansion, so they're a partner in this. We got an approval there. We were able to identify a firm who was willing to do pro bono design work for us so that should that become the next reality, further higher. Good, bad, good. Yeah, my karaoke days were a long time ago, sorry. We did the RFP process for the learning landscape. We went out, we bid for firms, and ultimately selected Stone Landscape Architecture. You guys have been a part of probably several conversations and opportunities to weigh in on the school's priorities for what learning landscape enhancements look like. We continue to do those community endeavors and conversations. Those will proceed. Huge celebration related to that is the $17,000 that the community just raised at Spring Fling to help support what will ultimately be the implementation of those landscape improvements. At this point, we are not at the place where we've identified what the design will look like. We've just identified really what the priorities are and what the attributes are for that space that we want. So we want nature-based, we want a lot of free choice, we want hands-on learning stations, we want the ability to have a variety of spaces, some quiet, restorative, peaceful spaces, as well as more active, as well as more structured play. So identifying what those elements are going to be, that's the work that's been occurring and will ongo. We launched an asset management database so that Sean and our facilities new director of Finance and Advancement, as well as Megan, can really keep tabs on optimal and efficient use of the facility. And we've had some net gains still on our solar array. Here's the life to date, almost 390,000 pounds of carbon offset, 219 trees, and several trips back and forth coast to coast saved through our clean energy at the school. So where do we go next? We've still identified that peak. We've identified that summit on the mountain. We continue to hike along that trail. We want to fully realize the facility for Free Horizon so that we have that optimal educational space. We also continue the work with the play yard and the learning landscape design. We are also actively pursuing grants so that we have different funding streams to be able to, once we've identified the feasibility, pursue actual construction and implementation. The financial paths we've undertaken, we did the 3B preparation, the refinance preparation, the grant pursuit, and the community supports through special appeals. We want to make sure that we have a sustainable and varied way to braid funding so that we can realize this in the next phase. So back to that mountain analogy. We've still got that summit identified. Sometimes you're hiking along the path, you encounter a tree that blocks the road. No problem, you do a little bushwhacking, you move along to the side, you keep hiking. Sometimes there's a heavy spring runoff. You've got to ford that creek, right? You keep hiking. Sometimes you get to a point where there is a new branch in that trail that looks worth pursuing, worth investigating. We've just come upon that trail for Free Horizon, and there's an opportunity for that new path that could potentially get us to the summit that we want to share with the community tonight. So this is late-breaking news, a neat opportunity. It does not change what the summit is. It's just maybe a different trail. You with me? So as many of you may know, Pleasant View Elementary School is a long-standing Jefferson County public school that is about 1.5 miles away from Free Horizon's current facility. And they were voted by the Jeffco Board of Education this past January to close, due in large part to the fact that the demographics of their surrounding neighborhood community have been changing and have been changing for the past decade. In fact, they've been on the Jeffco Board of Education closure list for about the past decade and have 3 times kind of come up against the reality that their school was not of viable size, and ultimately that determination was made by the Jeffco Board of Ed. So it was a given that they are going to be closing, and this is their last year to hold academic programming as that school in that facility. They have a 51,000 square foot facility compared to our 34,000 square foot facility that has a gym, it has a cafeteria, it has a library, dedicated music studio, art studio, really engaging and interesting and exciting facilities there. Like I said, it's about 1.5 miles away, just on the other side of down Colfax near Moss there. It's about a similar size school relative to the number of seats of students that it houses. Some pictures here. Here's an aerial, the elevation, and some interior. So Free Horizon, knowing that Pleasant View has been slated for closure, and this is its last year, has been monitoring this pretty closely the last few months and evaluating it as an opportunity for Free Horizon to realize its educational programming adequacy in a different site than we are here currently. And so we've been doing a lot of internal due diligence and evaluation of what this particular facility might afford for our community. That doesn't mean that we don't continue to do the work here to continue to pursue that peak here at Free Horizon in its current facility, but it's something that we're evaluating in parallel because this opportunity could allow us to realize some of those same goals in a different way on a faster timeline and with some cost savings. So this is an opportunity. There is no certainty with it. It is something that we've been vetting and evaluating from a strategic standpoint to determine if this is the trail that it makes sense for Free Horizon to pursue. So what we've done so far, again, monitoring the Jeffco Board of Education actions, determining how they're moving along the process for their identification of this facility as a surplus, which then they would afford it or offer it up for sale to a prospective buyer. Free Horizon may be a prospective buyer if ultimately it makes sense for the community through a number of different filters. We've done some preliminary site evaluation, just taking a look at some of the floor plans, some of the site availability, the landscape externally to determine whether that would be appropriate for our school. We have submitted a formal letter of interest to the district so that they're aware of the fact that we want to engage in some additional targeted conversations when the time is right. We've brought it to the board. We've had some strategic conversations about that. We've brought it to the facilities committee, again, to evaluate in context of the facilities master plan. We've started conversation with appraisers and brokers to evaluate what this school could potentially be in terms of sale or transfer of an asset to, again, sort of navigate what that looks like when and if it becomes a reality with the district. talked to our bond underwriter to evaluate our current debt service and our current bond to determine what opportunities exist there. And then playing out a whole host of different financial scenarios if ultimately this makes sense both from a cost-saving standpoint as well as a realization of educational adequacy standpoint. There may be some triple wins in that regard. The next steps. We continue the due diligence. We continue the real estate evaluations. We will engage with the district when that opportunity is open to do so. And ultimately engage with the community. This is a very much community-involved collaboration, both from the Free Horizon community, the Pleasant View community, the district as a community stakeholder as well, our students, our families, our staff, making sure that everyone has the ability to weigh in, to ask questions, to do their own due diligence, and make sure that they've got the information that they need to understand what the impact of this decision might be for the Free Horizon community. The community won't change. The community is still the same. The community energy and love and activities and curriculum, that will occur and will flourish regardless of the site. We are very intentional about how we want to engage with each of those stakeholders, and so there'll be a lot of opportunities to get into more conversation there as we move forward through this. The timeline at this point is unknown. We are monitoring the district to determine when they are ready and available to make these offers public, and then we'll know a little bit more about what the implementation and decision-making timeframe involves. Obviously, a biggie is the play yard and learning landscape design and evaluation. So we started the design build process and undertaking all of this work well before we realized that this trail opportunity was going to present itself. That will continue. And we've had some intentional conversations with Stone Landscape Architects so that they've reshifted and resequenced the work that they're doing with the Free Horizon community to make sure that we are now focusing on, rather than the exact implementation of the priorities and the design vision on this particular campus with these particular parameters, but really to focus on what do we want to see, what do we want to have for our kids, what do they want to be doing in that space, so that we've got the ability to, should Pleasant View become a reality, take those same inputs, take those same priorities, and apply them to that campus. It's got a great 7-acre site with a nice big field, 2 separate playgrounds, one of which for the older kids, one of which for the early childhood. Jen made it, good job. But they have enhancements that are needed there too. So there are enhancements there too, enhancements that ultimately we would want to apply these same resources and same energy and same funds to. So the monies that have been raised as the special appeal are being earmarked, they're being set aside, they're being reserved for implementation of those improvements here or there. That work will continue, that work and the conversation will continue, that community involvement will continue. We're just not sure exactly what site it's going to be yet, although we hope to have a little bit more clarity on that by the end of this summer. Gathering, you might have some questions related to that. So what we are hoping to do is have a dedicated community forum time where we invite all of the Free Horizon community, those who weren't able to be a part of this meeting here tonight, to focus specifically on the Pleasant View prospect on Monday, May 15th, that evening, so that we, at that point, have hopefully a little bit more understanding from the district, and then also can really speak about any of the questions or considerations that the community at large has. So go ahead and put that in your phones right now. We'll be communicating that out and really do invite all of your questions, all of your thoughts, all of your concerns, all of your excitement at that point, and we'll be able to address all of that to the extent that we can based on what we know at that time. And again, to reinforce, this is an opportunity, and this is something that we very much are sensitive to the reality of the impact to the Pleasant View community based on the loss of their current school and the fact that they are grieving that change for their community. At the same time, that may afford an opportunity for Free Horizon. So we want to be that center, that heart, that soul for the community, if that is the right place for us to be as we move forward to realize the strategic plan. If it is not, we continue to endeavor to realize all of those visions for the current facility, and that work will continue.
So thank you. That's the Facilities Committee update. I don't see Margaret or Lynn yet. Oh, yeah, sorry, you were just sitting down on the floor. All right, I'm ready to announce our winners.
Okay, first we want to say that as a committee, we are overwhelmed with how many people voted, staff and community members and families. Huge, huge. It was a tremendous turnout, and we are overwhelmed. We were blown away with all the ballots we had to count. So it was a close election, and we are announcing our new board members as Lisa Cernick and Jonathan Spitzy. Again, to those who are seeing this live stream and all of you here tonight, thank you for voting. Every year it gets bigger. Every year we get more involvement, and it is really rewarding to know that everybody is saying yes to being a part, in beyond what they do already. Thank you.
So I hope that you all get the sense that what happens here, the beautiful and amazing things that happen here, are a collaborative effort. We have amazing, amazing people from all of our teachers and staff, many of whom are here tonight. So I give them all a shout out for coming here after teaching kids all day. To our amazing families who support us in what we do and give in so many ways, whether you can serve as a volunteer on a committee or in a leadership capacity in our school, whether you take care of our pets on vacations, do our classroom laundry, send snacks for staff meetings, come and bid on items at Spring Fling, donate items at Spring Fling, sit at the table to check people in at Spring Fling. All of the various ways that you all contribute is valuable, it is important, and it takes every single minute and every single positive intention of each and every one of you. So I am humbled every single year. I am so proud to be a part of this community, and I thank each and every one of you for your part of making the magic here at Free Horizon happen. So thank you so much. And with that, I think it's like a record of early time frame for our State of the School meeting. Thank you all for coming.